Welcome back to the Lineout Lab. My name is Peter O'Donnell. In this part of how to beat a good lineout defence, we're going to look at attacking the hinges, or the lifters in particular. When putting together your lineout menu, it's really important to think about the various different defensive systems that you're going to come across and to understand where the defensive threats are. To begin, let's look at a few different 5-man lineout examples. The key thing with this clip is what Ireland are trying to do is to drag New Zealand forward, and in particular get those that are either on a mirror or those that are hinging. So Brodie Retallick, whether he's on a mirror or the hinge, it's very much a similar process, or principle I should say, in that they're trying to drag him forward and make it difficult for him to turn around. Or likewise, they're trying to drag Scott Barrett forward and make it difficult for him to turn and lift Retallick if he's on that jumping assignment. So we can see here how Barrett goes to commit, but once there's any sort of dummy out, because they commit so hard, it's very difficult for them to get anyone else up into that space. So it makes it a very effective movement from Ireland. Let's look at a similar clip from South Africa. Here we see Toby Faletau, who's in the middle of the lineout, and he's probably initially defending any sort of straight up option on the go there. But once there's any sort of movement, he's probably just going to be a lifter. So what South Africa do well is they have a little pop out here where the middle jumper steps out there, and then South Africa literally just jump in behind the space where he was. But because of that trigger and that movement of where he jumps out, that just throws a bit of confusion into the Welsh minds, and it makes it difficult then for Toby Faletau to turn around and lift then. Here's another look. So Faletau is defending initially as a jumping option, but then once there's any sort of movement, he's probably going to be just a lifter. So the key thing you're trying to do is get them to turn their shoulders and commit to a lift. Let's look at this in a slightly different way. Let's look at two 5-man lineout defensive systems here where we have a mirror and a hinge. The numbers don't particularly matter, so let's break it down into jumpers and hinges or lifters. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to strictly look at those that are in the lineout, so not necessarily the channel or scrum half defenders or tail gunner. So let's look at a movement that drags the defence forward towards the thrower. And this could be a singular movement or it could be a multiple movement where the setup might start at the back and then move towards the front. But essentially you're trying to attack that middle or middle back space and challenge the last two people in the lineout to be on the same page as the other three defenders. So it's a bit like attack in open play where you're trying to read shoulders or commit shoulders to face a certain way, albeit it's a slightly different context in a lineout, in that you might necessarily get to see the shoulders. But there we can see from the top and then from the bottom one is that we're getting the shoulders to fully turn and attack that space in behind there. But the key is to do it really, really quickly so that the opposition don't have a chance to react. Now let's look at another Irish clip. But before we do, if you're new to the channel, please click that subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of your screen where you'll get access to loads of additional content from me. Please also like and share the video to help the discussion grow. Thank you. Here we see a similar example, albeit it's a change in setup or a late change in setup where then Ireland then move and then move again, making it very difficult for New Zealand to adjust, and they don't get a chance to get any real pressure in the air. So there's a late change in the setup to make it a 3-2, and then once they get towards the front, Byrne turns, James Ryan comes forward, and whilst New Zealand react and get in the air, the movement is done too quickly to get any real significant pressure on them. Let's look at another example from Ireland versus New Zealand last summer. So while Ireland ultimately lose this lineout, it does show that the idea was right. Similar to the South Africa example, we're going to see Peter O'Mahony in the middle of the lineout step out, dummy forward, step out, and just get New Zealand to bite. And why it is a good option for Ireland is because we're going to see two men get in the air from New Zealand. So there's that bit of confusion because it's done so quickly that New Zealand aren't going to get enough pressure on Ireland. So it's really well worked. So by attacking the middle defender in particular to turn and commit, or the second man in line to turn and commit to a lift, is very, very challenging for the defensive team. So apologies to any of my Kiwi friends, by the way. I've looked at them defensively more than other teams, and the reason I've done that is because they're one of the best defences. But so are the Brumbies, as we see in this example here. The key man to look at is the third man in the line-out for the Brumbies, who is strictly on a hinge here. So he's either going to lift the man just in front of him in the middle, or he's going to turn, as he does here, and lift at the back. So it doesn't quite come off for the Crusaders in this example, and it means that we have to be very, very smart about how we manipulate those hinge defenders. In this example, we're going to see how Ireland exploit Alwyn Jones, who likewise is the third man in the line-out, and more than likely is going to probably be a jumping defender if Ireland were to go straight away in the middle. But once there's any sort of movement, he's probably just going to be a lifter, or excuse me, a jumper. So what Ireland do really well is they use their +1 here after they've gotten Alwyn Jones to commit to the back, and then making it very difficult for him to get any sort of lift on Tipuric, which he nearly does. Or Tipuric still gets up and puts some pressure in the air, but it's not quite enough to win the ball. And we can apply the same principle then to six-man lineouts, where we can see how Leinster have dragged Racing forward, and then with a double dummy, it makes it very difficult for all the Racing defenders to be on the same page and make a good read. Let's look at it one more time. And the key thing we're looking at is all the white shirts that are facing forward. So there's three men, blue scum cap, red scum cap, and the man just in front of him, and how they all have to react because of that extra dummy. So whilst I'm not advocating loads of dummies, what I am saying is movements that get the defenders to bite and commit and turn those shoulders are going to be very, very difficult to defend. If you enjoyed this, you might also like this other video by clicking here in the corner. As always, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts.